Randy stood frozen on stage at the National Business Excellence Awards, his mistress Avenia clinging to his arm in a designer gown, as the giant screen behind them suddenly flickered to life. His wife Imani's face appeared, not in humiliation but in absolute power. She was seated in their bedroom at home, where he'd locked her hours ago, claiming she was too plain to accompany him. But the room behind her wasn't just their bedroom. It was revealed to be a command center with laptops, documents, and her executive team on video call. The host announced, "And now the CEO of Meridian Holdings, the primary sponsor of tonight's event, will address us remotely due to unexpected circumstances." Randy's blood turned cold. Imani smiled directly into the camera, at him, and began to speak. The audience didn't know yet. Avenia didn't know. But Randy realized in that instant. His wife wasn't the housewife he'd humiliated for 3 years. She was his boss. She'd been watching everything. And tonight she was done protecting him. "Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake." Now let us continue. 3 hours before the awards ceremony, Randy Akins stood before the full-length mirror in their luxury apartment, adjusting his bow tie with practiced precision. Behind him, Imani sat quietly on the edge of their bed, hands folded in her lap, watching her husband prepare for the evening that would change everything. "You're not seriously thinking you're coming with me tonight?" Randy said without turning around. It wasn't a question. Imani's voice was soft, measured. "It's the National Business Excellence Awards, Randy. You're nominated." You thought wrong." He finally turned to face her, his expression a mixture of irritation and something close to disgust. "Imani, look at yourself. Look at what you're wearing." She glanced down at her simple cotton dress, the kind she wore around the house. "I was going to change." "Into what?" "Another one of those plain outfits you insist on wearing." Randy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Do you have any idea who's going to be there tonight? CEOs, executives, government officials, media personalities. I can't walk in with someone who looks like a village housewife." The words landed like physical blows, but Imani's expression barely changed. She'd heard variations of this speech for 3 years now, ever since Randy's career at Meridian Holdings had taken off. Ever since the struggling gentleman she'd married had transformed into this person she barely recognized. "I've been your wife for 4 years, Randy," she said quietly. "And for 4 years I've been patient," he shot back. "Your family helped me when I had nothing. I'm grateful for that. But I've worked hard to get where I am. I've earned my position at Meridian. And tonight, I need to be seen with someone who fits into that world. Someone like Avenia." Randy's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected her to say the name out loud. For months he'd been careful, discreet about his affair with Avenia Michaels, a socialite whose father owned half the commercial real estate in Lagos. A woman who understood ambition, who enhanced his image rather than diminishing it. "Avenia understands the corporate world," Randy said, his voice cold. "She knows how to dress, how to speak to these people. She makes me look good, Imani. You'd embarrass me." Imani stood slowly, and for a moment, Randy thought she might finally push back, might finally show some fire. Instead, she simply walked toward the bedroom door. "Where do you think you're going?" Randy moved quickly, blocking her path. "To get some air. You should get ready to pick up Avenia." "No." Randy pulled out his phone, sent a quick text, then pocketed it. "I can't risk you following me to the venue, causing a scene in front of everyone. I know how women get when they're emotional." "Randy, I'm not going to." He cut her off by stepping outside the bedroom door and pulling it shut. Imani heard the distinctive click of the exterior lock, the one Randy had insisted on installing months ago, claiming it was for security when we travel. "Randy." She tried the handle, but it didn't budge. "Randy, you can't lock me in here." "It's for your own good, Imani." His voice came through the door, already distant as he moved down the hallway. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." She heard his footsteps fade. Then the sound of the apartment's front door closing. Silence settled over the locked bedroom like a heavy blanket. Imani stood there for a long moment, her hand still on the useless door handle. Then slowly she turned back to face the room. Her reflection caught in the mirror. Randy had been admiring himself in just minutes before. She looked at herself, really looked, and saw what Randy no longer could. A woman who'd sacrificed everything for love, who'd hidden her true self to protect a man who'd never deserved that protection. She walked to the closet and pushed aside the hanging clothes, revealing a hidden safe built into the wall. Her fingers moved over the keypad with muscle memory, and it opened with a soft beep. Inside were 3 laptops, a tablet, files marked confidential, and a mobile phone that Randy had never seen. Imani pulled out the phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Zara? It's time," she said, her voice no longer soft, no longer uncertain. "Initiate Protocol 7. Tonight, Randy learns exactly who he married." She ended the call and turned to her main laptop, opening it to reveal multiple screens, stock tickers, corporate communications, video conference windows with faces Randy would recognize as the executive board of Meridian Holdings. Imani Akins settled into her chair, pulled up the live stream of the National Business Excellence Awards, and watched her husband arrive at the venue with Avenia on his arm, both of them smiling for the cameras like they'd already won. "Tonight, Randy," Imani whispered to the screen, "tonight you'll understand everything." The grand ballroom of the Eco Pearl Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and the ambitions of Nigeria's business elite. Randy moved through the crowd with Avenia beside him, her hand possessively on his arm, her scarlet dress turning heads and drawing exactly the kind of attention he craved. "Randy Akins, congratulations on the nomination." A colleague from Meridian's marketing division approached with an extended hand. "Thank you, Philip. Let me introduce Avenia Michaels, my partner for the evening." The subtle emphasis on partner wasn't lost on Philip, whose eyebrows rose slightly but who was too polite, or too political, to comment. Randy had been carefully laying groundwork for months, appearing at corporate events with Avenia, allowing colleagues to draw their own conclusions about his marriage. What Randy didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that his marriage was never what he thought it was. In the locked bedroom across the city, Imani watched the live stream on her laptop while simultaneously managing 3 video conferences with her executive team. Her mother Maria's face appeared in one window, concern etched across her features. "Imani, are you sure about this?" Maria asked. "Once you do this, there's no going back." "Mama, he locked me in our bedroom," Imani replied, her voice steady. "Like I'm a prisoner. Like I'm something shameful to be hidden away." "I told you not to marry him without revealing who you were," Maria said. But there was no satisfaction in being right, only sorrow. "I told you love wasn't enough when built on secrets." Imani's brother Kelvin appeared in another window, his lawyer's mind already working through implications. "The media is going to devour this story. You know that, right?" "Let them," Imani said quietly. "I'm tired of hiding, Kelvin. I've been hiding for 5 years, since Papa died and left me Meridian Holdings. Hiding from business rivals who wanted to exploit a young female CEO. Hiding my wealth from Randy because I wanted to know if he loved me for me." 5 years ago, when Imani's father Samuel Akins had died suddenly of a heart attack, she'd inherited his business empire at just 25 years old. Meridian Holdings, a conglomerate spanning real estate, technology and manufacturing, was worth billions. But Samuel's sudden death had left the company vulnerable, with rival corporations circling and internal factions questioning whether a young woman could lead. Imani's mother and the board had advised her to operate through proxies, to maintain privacy while she consolidated power and proved herself. She'd done exactly that, becoming one of the most successful CEOs in West Africa, while remaining publicly invisible. She'd met Randy 2 years into her secret tenure as CEO. He was volunteering at a charity event her foundation sponsored, teaching underprivileged youth about business basics. He'd been gentle then, earnest, struggling to build a career with genuine determination rather than shortcuts. She'd fallen for his vulnerability, his authenticity. After they married, Imani had used her anonymous influence to help Randy's career. "A quiet word to Meridian's HR director here," a recommendation to the promotions committee there. She'd told herself she was supporting her husband, helping him achieve his potential. She'd watched him change with each promotion, watched the gentle man become arrogant, watched him start criticizing her clothes, her hair, her lack of social polish, watched him start staying late at work events that her executive assistant Zara confirmed he wasn't attending. Then came Avenia. Imani had known about the affair for 8 months. She'd seen the hotel receipts, the carefully deleted messages, the too long lunch breaks. She'd said nothing, hoping Randy would come to his senses, hoping the man she'd married was still somewhere inside this stranger. Tonight had shown her the truth. He wasn't just unfaithful. He was ashamed of her. Ashamed enough to lock her away like a secret he needed to hide. Protocol 7 is ready, Zara's voice came through Imani's earpiece. The host has the new script. Security is positioned. Media has been briefed on standby mode. We're just waiting for your signal. On the live stream, Randy was being called to the stage. Avenia squeezed his hand, kissed his cheek for the cameras. The host began his introduction. And now our nominee for Best Regional Manager, Randy Akins from Meridian Holdings. Applause filled the ballroom. Randy climbed the steps to the stage, his smile wide and confident. He had no idea his wife was watching, had no idea that every person in that room was about to learn exactly who she was. Imani took a deep breath and spoke into her microphone. Zara, initiate Protocol 7. It's time. Randy met the real Mrs. Akins. The applause was still echoing when the lights in the ballroom suddenly dimmed. Randy stood at the microphone, his acceptance speech prepared in his jacket pocket, Avenia beaming from the front row in her scarlet gown. Then the massive screen behind him flickered to life and everything changed. Imani's face appeared, filling the enormous display, and Randy's confident smile faltered. He recognized the background immediately, their bedroom, the locked bedroom. But something was profoundly wrong with the image. Behind Imani, he could see multiple laptops open on desks, corporate documents scattered across surfaces, people visible on video screens. The simple bedroom he'd left her trapped in looked like a high-powered corporate command center. The host's voice cut through the confused murmurs rippling through the 500-person audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special address from the CEO of Meridian Holdings, the primary sponsor of tonight's prestigious event. Randy's stomach dropped like a stone into ice-cold water. Good evening, Imani began, her voice calm, clear, and utterly controlled through the ballroom's premium sound system. I am Imani Akins, CEO of Meridian Holdings. Many of you know me only through my representatives and proxies, as I've maintained strict privacy for security reasons following my father Samuel Akins's death 5 years ago. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers. Heads turned. 500 of Lagos's most influential business leaders, government officials and media personalities swiveled to stare at Randy, whose face had drained of all color. I'm addressing you remotely from my home tonight, Imani continued, her tone never rising, never becoming emotional, just presenting facts with devastating precision, because my husband Randy Akins, your best regional manager nominee standing on that stage, locked me in our bedroom 3 hours ago. He told me I was too plain, too unsophisticated, too embarrassing to accompany him to this event. Audible gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Cameras swiveled toward Randy. Journalists in the media section began frantically typing. Avenia's face appeared briefly on screen as she half stood from her seat, confusion and horror dawning across her carefully made-up features. Randy doesn't know that every promotion he's received at Meridian Holdings came from my personal recommendations to our executive board, Imani said, each word landing like a hammer blow. He doesn't know that I personally purchased the luxury apartment we live in. He doesn't know that his nomination tonight required my direct approval as Chief Executive Officer. The screen split then, showing Imani on one side and a series of time-stamped photographs on the other. Randy and Avenia at exclusive restaurants, entering luxury hotels, embracing in parking garages, kissing at private events. Nothing graphic or invasive, but undeniable photographic evidence of a sustained affair conducted while he wore his wedding ring and claimed late business meetings. I have endured disrespect, cruelty, emotional abuse, and systematic isolation for 3 years, Imani said, and for the first time a flicker of genuine emotion crossed her face. Not anger but profound bone-deep sadness. But locking me away like a prisoner while publicly parading another woman as your partner crosses a line, I can no longer tolerate. Randy tried to speak, to protest, to explain, but no sound emerged from his throat. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Beside the stage, Avenia was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, her scarlet dress a blur of panicked movement, but security personnel, people Randy suddenly realized wore Meridian Holdings identification badges, had already positioned themselves at every door. Effective immediately, Imani stated with absolute finality, Randy Akins's employment with Meridian Holdings is terminated. All benefits, stock options, pension contributions, and professional recommendations associated with his tenure are permanently revoked. Security will collect his access credentials tomorrow morning. She paused, and the entire ballroom held its breath. I loved you, Randy, Imani said quietly, looking directly into the camera as if she could see him standing there broken and exposed. I loved you enough to hide who I was, to give you the chance to love me for myself rather than my wealth or position. But you never did. You loved what I could do for you without knowing it was me doing it. You loved the career I built for you, the lifestyle I provided, the doors I opened. That's not love, Randy. That's convenience. That's exploitation. The screen went completely dark. The ballroom remained silent for 3 impossibly long heartbeats. Then chaos erupted, journalists rushing forward with microphones extended, colleagues backing away from Randy as if his disgrace were contagious, the host stammering helplessly into the microphone, flash photography exploding from every direction. Randy stood frozen on stage under the spotlight, his award ceremony transformed into his very public execution, his mistress fleeing, his career destroyed, his marriage obliterated. And somewhere across the city, in a bedroom he'd locked her inside, his wife was finally free. Randy's hands shook violently as he struggled to unlock the apartment door 2 hours later. The drive home had been a nightmarish blur of ignored calls from Avenia, former colleagues, business contacts, and people whose names he didn't even recognize but whose voicemail tones all conveyed the same message. His career was finished, his reputation destroyed, his social standing obliterated. The bedroom door stood wide open. Inside, Imani was methodically packing a suitcase with calm, practiced efficiency, folding clothes with steady hands. Imani, please, we need to talk. Randy started, his voice cracking. Don't. She didn't even look up from her packing. There's absolutely nothing left to say between us. I didn't know. You never told me who you were. You lied to me. And whose fault is that, Randy? Now she did look at him, and her eyes held no anger, no tears, only complete exhaustion. I wanted you to love me. Not my money, not my company, not my father's legacy, just me. I wanted to know if you could love Imani the woman, not Imani the CEO. And you couldn't even do that when you thought I had nothing to offer you. The apartment door opened again without warning. Imani's mother Maria entered wearing traditional Ankara print, her face carved from stone, followed closely by her brother Kelvin in his lawyer's suit, carrying multiple legal folders under his arm. Mama, please, you have to understand, Randy began desperately, but Maria held up one hand with such authority that his words died instantly. I told my daughter not to marry you without revealing who she was, Maria said, her voice cold and precise as a surgical instrument. She defended you. She insisted you were different, that you loved her for herself. She was wrong. I was right. And you locked her in a room like she was your prisoner. Kelvin stepped forward, extending a thick manila folder. Divorce papers. Everything is legally straightforward. Imani owned all assets before the marriage under prenuptial agreement. You leave with exactly what you brought into this relationship. Sign them. Tonight. Randy's phone, which hadn't stopped buzzing since he left the ballroom, lit up again. A text from Avenia. My family knows everything. They've completely disowned me. My father won't speak to me. This is entirely your fault. Never contact me again. Another message from his former supervisor at Meridian. Security will arrive at 9 a.m. to collect your access cards, laptop, and office keys. Don't be there. Another from a colleague he'd once considered a friend. Can't believe you didn't know who your own wife was. How stupid can one person be? I built my career through hard work, Randy protested weakly, grasping for anything solid in his collapsing world. You built absolutely nothing, Kelvin interrupted sharply. Imani built everything for you. Every single promotion, every opportunity, every door that mysteriously opened. That was her influence, her recommendations, her money smoothing your path. And you repaid her generosity with public humiliation and abuse. Randy's phone rang. His mother, Patricia. He answered with trembling hands, desperate for any ally. "Randy, what have you done?" Her voice cracked with disappointment so profound it was almost physical. "That girl's family lifted you from poverty. They gave you everything. I raised you better than this. How could you lock your wife in a room? What kind of man have you become?" He tried to explain, to justify, to make her understand, but Patricia cut him off. "Your sister Nina won't speak to you. Your aunties are ashamed. I'm ashamed. Don't call me until you've figured out how to be a decent human being." She hung up. By morning, Randy's social media accounts were flooded with condemnation. Former friends posted long statements about their disgust. Colleagues he'd once competed with relished his downfall publicly. The story had gone viral nationally. Husband locks wife in room. Doesn't know she's his boss, trending across every platform with his photo attached. Avenia sent one final devastating message. "You destroyed my life. My reputation. My family relationships. Everything. I hope you're satisfied. Lose my number forever." Randy sat alone in the apartment, Imani's apartment. He now understood with sickening clarity, staring at eviction papers Kelvin had left. He had 30 days to vacate the premises. 30 days to find somewhere to live on a suddenly non-existent income. He looked around at the luxury he'd taken for granted, the imported furniture, the original artwork, the view of Lagos that had made him feel successful. None of it was his. None of it had ever been his. Imani zipped her final suitcase closed. Maria and Kelvin picked up her bags. She walked past Randy without a word, without a glance, as if he'd already ceased to exist. The door closed behind them. Randy was alone. 6 months later, Randy Akins lived in a cramped single room in Yaba, working as a sales associate at an electronics store in a shopping plaza. The fall from a luxury 2-bedroom apartment in Ikoyi to this dim room with peeling paint and a shared bathroom down the hall had been swift, brutal, and absolute. He tried everything to reach Imani. Emails that bounced back as blocked. Messages through her family that went unanswered. Letters sent to her corporate office that were returned unopened. Finally, after 3 months of persistent attempts, Kelvin agreed to meet him at a modest cafe far from the business district where Randy once networked. "She doesn't want to see you," Kelvin said without any preliminary greeting, sliding into the plastic chair across from Randy. "I just need 5 minutes to apologize properly." "You've apologized. Repeatedly. She's heard you. She doesn't forgive you, and she doesn't want you in her life." Kelvin pulled out his phone and read directly from a message. "This is from Imani. You didn't love me, Randy. You loved what I could secretly do for you. You loved the promotions, the lifestyle, the status, all provided by the woman you were ashamed to be seen with. That's not love. That's parasitic convenience. I hope you eventually find peace, but you'll find it without me. Don't contact me again." Randy's hands trembled around his cheap coffee cup, the foam already dissolving. "I made terrible mistakes." "You made thousands of deliberate choices," Kelvin corrected sharply. "Every time you criticized her appearance, her clothes, her social skills. Every time you snuck off with Avenia while Imani waited at home. Every time you felt embarrassed by the woman who was literally building your entire career without you knowing it. The locked door wasn't the mistake, Randy. It was just the final irreversible choice in a long pattern of cruelty." Randy encountered Avenia once, outside a supermarket 3 months into his new reality. She looked through him as if he were completely invisible, her former warmth and flirtation replaced with ice-cold contempt. When he tried to speak, she walked away without acknowledgement, her bodyguard. She apparently had security now, stepping between them. His younger sister Nina refused all his calls. When he showed up at his mother's house, Patricia answered the door but didn't invite him inside. "I'm ashamed of how I raised you," she said quietly. "I thought I taught you respect, dignity, gratitude. Instead, you became the kind of man who locks his wife in a room. Until you truly understand what you've done, not just that you got caught, but what you actually did to another human being, we have nothing to discuss." The door closed in his face. Randy wrote a final letter to Imani, not begging for reconciliation, not requesting anything, just acknowledging the full scope of pain he'd caused. He mailed it knowing she'd probably never read it, but needing to write it anyway. 3 weeks later he saw her on television. The electronics store where he worked had the news playing, and there she was, Imani Akins, publicly acknowledged CEO of Meridian Holdings, giving an interview about women's leadership and economic empowerment. She wore an elegant cream suit, her natural hair styled beautifully, her face radiating confidence and peace in ways she'd never shown during their marriage. The interviewer mentioned rumors of a new relationship. Imani smiled, genuinely, warmly. I've learned that real partnership requires mutual respect from the very beginning. Someone who values you when you're strong and when you're vulnerable. Someone who sees your worth regardless of what you can materially offer them. That's what I'm building now. Randy's coworker changed the channel, unaware of any connection. That evening Randy sat in his small rented room, surrounded by the few possessions he'd managed to keep. Some clothes, a few books, photos from a life that felt like someone else's memory. He looked at their wedding photo, at Imani's genuine smile, at his own face full of promises he'd never intended to keep. Some consequences cannot be undone. Some trust, once shattered, cannot be repaired with apologies or time. Randy had been given everything: authentic love, unwavering support, opportunities he never earned, and he'd systematically destroyed it all with his own hands, his own choices, his own cruelty. He'd wanted a wife who enhanced his image, who made him look successful. Instead, he'd had a wife who literally built his entire world, and he'd been too blind, too arrogant, too ashamed to see her. Now, in his cramped room with his minimum wage job and his destroyed reputation, Randy Akins finally understood the true price of shame. He'd been ashamed of Imani. Now everyone, his family, his former colleagues, his city, his country, was ashamed of him. And unlike a locked door, there was no key that could ever open the future he'd permanently, irreversibly closed. Actions carry weight. Cruelty leaves scars. And some losses are forever. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.